Well, hey, Coach, I would say welcome to Dallas, but it's been a week now. I mean, you said you're going to dive in here. What has been the biggest challenge here this first week? Has it been trying to figure out where to go, like you said, or learning names, or what's been the biggest challenge for you?
Biggest challenge is walking from the Omni to my office. So I've made a couple wrong turns, but that's been the biggest challenge. Everything else has really been fun. I mean, it's been awesome. Just have a lot to do. It's a normal process of when you're hired, but so many people have called, so many people to talk to. So I'm just working through it.
You've talked before about driving into Lambeau Field and seeing the statues and all that. Talk about the balance between building, protecting a legacy, the Packers, the Cowboys, but also knowing that a change is needed, and you have to kind of go in here and make some of those changes without changing what has been built.
Well, I mean, the communication and the transparency is very important throughout your time at any organization, and obviously that's what's going on right now as far as every step that we want to take to make sure we're making the right changes if needed, make sure we're emphasizing the right things if needed, and really, frankly, maybe just adjusting the things that are needed. So that's really the way my mind works, and it's a process that has started, but we have a lot of work to do. I mean, that's why I'm here. I mean, this is part of building a program. The way we do things are going to be different than we're done here before. There's some things that we're going to do that are the same as they did before. So just kind of working through all the intricacy is really what we're focused on.
Along those lines, I know there's going to be some new guys here on this coaching staff, and that's what you're working on here. But how important is it to have a few of those holdovers that kind of know how things were, know how these players were? It's been said you can just change the whole staff, but you do seem like you need some of those guys. Maybe Kellen Moore would be that.
It's the preferred. I mean, you definitely would like to keep as many of the current coaching staff. I think there's definitely there's a lot to gain from that. But in the same breath, it's really how the staff fits together. That'll be the priority, and that is my focus.
Speaking of Kellen Moore, you had some high praise for him the other day. You also said you're not sure what's going to happen with calling plays, but what can an offensive coordinator do? What would a role be, even if he's not calling plays? There's other things he can do, obviously, throughout the week that's important.
Well, definitely. I mean, obviously, if you call it or don't call it, your job description is different. I think it's important if you call plays that you need to be the coach that's installing it in front of the players. So, those are types of things. As I looked at my 13 years in Green Bay, as the play caller, I wasn't doing all the installing. So, as I build the job descriptions here, if you're going to call it, you need to install it. So that's a belief of mine.
Brett Favre said something earlier this week about how the message that maybe you had when you were with, not maybe coaching, but with Joe Montana, and then how you coached a young Brett Favre and then coached Aaron Rodgers, how it can be, it's not so much what you're saying in your message, but how you're delivering it. It's going to be different to how you deliver a message to Dak Prescott.
Well, definitely. I think anytime you have the ability to show an example of what you're trying to get done, and you have that example is Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers, Joe Montana. It definitely brings a heightened credibility to that teaching moment. So I think that's something as coaches you always try to do. But the fact of the matter, it's you were there for that instruction and that performance. So I think it's all just adding credibility and confidence to what you're trying to teach.
I know this week's been focused on a lot of the coaching, but even last year, you said you watching the Cowboys, watching all teams. Was there a couple of players maybe that stood out that you can maybe pinpoint that maybe you didn't know a lot about? You kind of liked what you saw there, and that you're like, oh, this is somebody I wasn't really familiar with. But
yeah, I think really in fairness to the roster, those are conversations maybe for the next interview. But it's. We have a lot of excellent football players here, and really the focus right now is to continue to add to that, through acquisition. And my job is really focus on make sure that we hire the right coaches to make sure the instruction is the way it needs to be done. So, but we have a lot of young guys, and I know just talking with the personnel guys, they're excited about the development of it. We haven't had a whole lot going on from medically, so it looks like we're going to have an opportunity to get a lot of these guys back.
And lastly, it's been well documented. You're a Steelers fan. You've coached for the Green Bay Packers, now coach for the Dallas Cowboys. When you were a young kid drawing this up, could you have done this any better?
Oh no, I don't think. If you have dreams, this was not a dream I ever had. That's for sure. But I'm thrilled to death it's happened. So, you always grew up watching the Cowboys because the Cowboys were always on the second game. We'd watch the Steelers in the first game and watch the Dallas Cowboys in the second game. So, those were great years in the '70s and in the early '80s. And once Tony Dorsett came here from the University of Pittsburgh, then
Right.
I think we all became Dallas Cowboy fans. Maybe it was our second team, but you always knew what was going on in Dallas.
All right, Mike, appreciate the time.
Thank you.
Thank you.